Every region has something different depending on elevation, weather, influences, and product of the land and produce of the land. Is it protected? Not. We're working hard on it. But if you go and dig into the culture, the difference between frike and wheat, is rice part of the culture or not? Who eats rice? Why is Lebanese food or Middle Eastern food all across America basically with rice? It's not part of our culture. We never had shish tawouk with rice. We never had meat with rice.
Sit back and grab a glass. It's Wine Talks with Paul K.
Hey, welcome to Wine Talks with Paul K. And we are in studio today with a surprise guest in Anthony Rahayel. Introduction in just a second. Hey, Wine Talks, of course, available on iHeartRadio, Pandora, Spotify, wherever you hang out. You're going to have a conversation with Anthony because he's with No Garlic, No Onions. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So this is a YouTube sensation, is it not?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is. If I do say so myself, this is
It is. I've been doing that for a long time. I do not eat garlic and onions. So the name came up. Okay, when we went out to dinner, our friends would say, okay, the No Garlic, No Onions guy is coming, so we have to cook No Garlic, No Onions. And the brand name was just straightforward.
Well, it's music to my heart and my stomach because my wife and I generally do the same thing. But you're Middle Eastern. I mean, you have to like garlic and onions. That's the rule.
It's not about liking it or not. It's about when you say garlic and onions, unfortunately, I would say, they're overused in our culture. They're way overused, a lot in the hummus, a lot in the baba ganoush, a lot everywhere. And sometimes you go to restaurants and you see big pieces of onions that big. Yes, you have to sometimes use garlic and onions, but in a moderation, in a very balanced way. Hummus does not take garlic. This is a big no. Tahini does not take garlic. Right. So at the end, you want to put garlic in a garlic spread tomb with your chicken. This is normal. But why marinate the chickens with garlic? So lots of things is when you go to Italy, you would enjoy a red tomato sauce in a pomodoro with spaghetti with 2 cloves of onions, which they remove at the end. But turning it into a Middle Eastern flavor, it would be like smashing 5 or 6 garlics, putting them into the sauce.
You're right.
Pizza, last thing. Italians would never, ever put garlic in a tomato sauce for a pizza. Why would it have garlic the American and Lebanese way?
I wonder, it's an interesting comment to make because the evolution of cuisine in America is a very fascinating subject for me. And here you are talking about the evolution of cuisines that everyone would assume at some point that there's always garlic and tomato sauce on the pizza. I mean, and particularly hummus, which has a huge range of styles, right? My mom's is different than everybody else's. But to say that you would not normally do that is really fascinating because we do over garlic stuff. It's ridiculous.
Exactly. Garlic powder in the States is everywhere. Every single
I think it's
word.
masking something, don't you think? Like they're trying to mask the real flavor of what's going on.
Can I say it as is? It's masking unprofessional chef.
Yes, right, that's true. In fact, yesterday I was at my daughter's and she took out a bottle of dressing and it was so loaded with garlic I couldn't use it. And then when you said that about hummus, almost all the commercial hummus you buy, like at Whole Foods, is over garlic. Because
it covers the taste of bad quality tahini.
Yes.
And it covers the taste of bad quality lemon. And it just balances everything. When you take garlic and you put it in the marination of chicken, it covers the bad smell of chicken. So putting garlic, which is very, very powering, which just covers all the other aromas. So go to a chef and say, who usually uses garlic in everything, and say, you know what, please do this for me now. And you would know if he is a good chef or just someone who adds ingredients together.
Has this trek journey into YouTube sensation, which is food, and let's just talk about the show a little bit. You travel the world. I just heard you do 250 days a year. That's like an Anthony Bourdain trek, and into the soiree of food. I mean, mostly food, right?
Food unites. Food connects.
Yes.
Food is the international language of happiness.
Yes. I'd like to say wine is, but that's okay.
Wine is. We'll talk about wine in a bit. My journey and travels search for success stories, for great people.
No, that's great.
My channel is not about me. I try to always remind people it's not about me. It's about the people I connect with and the people I meet. And you would go on a video probably around 50 minutes, of which I would appear in 10 minutes, and the 40 are about people. What did I discover? Who did I meet? What did I learn? Very important. What did we learn from this and that? What can I learn from you at the end of this talk? What can I learn from everyone I meet? And traveling all around the world for several reasons. The first major reason is letting people travel with me when they cannot. There is this lady once in LA stopped me, Lebanese, old lady, 75, did a gathering at 9 p.m. and she comes in and said, okay, what are you doing here? And it's too late. She said, wait, I'm coming just to tell you that you're paying the money, you're traveling, you're doing all the hassle, and I'm staying home on my couch and watching all you do.
Wow.
I'm traveling with you for free. And from that day, I always remind myself that yes, I'm traveling for people while they watch and enjoy. We do publish a video every single night at 9 p.m., every single night. So people travel and follow my journey. What did Anthony do today, yesterday, and the day before? So the show is about people mainly, connected through food. So your food is different than mine, your sandwich is different than mine, Italian food is different than Lebanese. Lebanese in the States are different than Lebanese in Canada, and so on and so forth. The journey started in 2012 as the food blogger that covers Lebanese food in the villages of Lebanon. But fast forward 12 years later, 8,500 videos on YouTube later, I can tell you that the journey has evolved through more people, more discoveries, more food, more great things. And along the way, it's a video with lots of messages. What did we learn? How can I pass through the origins of food, and how can we go back to the origins without changing? Something probably we can discuss later on.
But have a listen to a recent episode with Stephanie Franklin. She is the winemaker who was sitting in a bar having a conversation with her friend, realizing they did not want to be with corporate America, and started the company Fly Wines. And I'm having a chance to taste these wines soon. But listen to that episode. Very, very fascinating, interesting trek into our industry. As well, in Missouri, there's a gentleman who is trying to recoup the lost grapes of America. And he found an old book from the 1800s, has found the strains of these grapes, and is trying to make wine, what might be the only indigenous American wines in the world, in Missouri. Have a look, listen to that. Jerry Esterhard.
When you go to many restaurants, Lebanese, Middle Eastern, let's call them, or not Lebanese restaurants around the America, and you say, why is the sandwich this way? And the answer would be, because Americans do eat this way. And I would go back and say, no, we taught them to eat this way. A Lebanese sandwich is a very straightforward creation that our ancestors have been eating for hundreds, probably thousands of years. So that adaptation to our original recipes, which I would love to protect and help myself protect and help people protect, I would go back every time I eat something and remind people that this is not how we eat it back home, or this is how you eat it back home, and trying to protect who we are. Because the mindset of what people think is Middle Eastern food is something that is bulky and that is fulfilling. Let me allow myself to give an example. Real Mexican food versus Chipotle.
I had Chipotle for lunch. So
صحتين.
okay, so this is a very interesting subject. And hell, we could probably do this for 3 hours at least, because you've just touched on so many different pieces of what a good show is about. Production value by itself. Creating a show once a day is incredible amount of overhead. But let's go about the subject matter itself. The evolution of food in America is all of the rules have been blinded and blurred. In other words, because of freeways and all the communication, you can now get New England clam chowder in Los Angeles. You can get Texas barbecue in Maine. It doesn't matter. And that wasn't always the case. But the French and the Europeans typically protect their regional foods, right? You go to the north in Italy and you get different foods than the south. And if you're in France, the butter is protected. The wines are protected. The regional cuisines are protected. Is it like that in the Middle East? Are there districts of the Middle East where there's cuisine that doesn't really escape those areas?
It is not protected, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I work very hard on protecting it and creating the numbers or the letters that we hear about, AOC, AOP, AOC, AOP,
right.
etc. I would love to have a protected Lebanese cheese. I would love to have a protected Lebanese wine. I would love to have a protected Lebanese labneh. Unfortunately, we cannot.
No.
But through my travels around Lebanon, we do have more than 1,200 villages, and each village is known for something and does something. So you would eat 10 different ways of eating kibbeh, probably in Lebanon, south different than the north. You would eat I would say, more than 15 different ways of doing a manouche, depending on the villages. You would drink different kind of wines depending on the elevation and the sun. And I'm not sure if you know that we have to date more than 85 different wineries in Lebanon. We're very proud of the 85 in that small little country.
Yeah.
So yes, every region has something different depending on elevation, weather, influences, and product of the land and produce of the land. Is it protected? Not. We're working hard on it. But if you go and dig into the culture, the difference between frike and wheat, the difference is rice part of the culture or not? Who eats rice? Why is Lebanese food or Middle Eastern food all across America basically with rice? It's not part of our culture. We never had shish tawouk with rice. We never had meat with rice. So that adaptation of whenever it's Middle Eastern, it's something that is fulfilling. So add rice. So in Arabic, bishabbi.
Well, that's an interesting problem because when we went to Armenia for the first time, well, I'm Armenian, as you know, there was no rice. And here in America, and my grandparents, all four of them are from the same village in Turkey, Aintab. And so we know the food in Aintab is better than the food that came from my mother-in-law's side of the family. Did I just say that out loud?
I can explain that because I've been to Armenia several times.
Because the Iranian versions of the Armenian food are completely different. And so, but there's an interesting argument to be made, and it's the same with the wine business. You know, America is the new world for so many people, and other parts of South America as well, where you're not bound by these rules that the AOC and the AOPs and the French government, for instance, puts in place, and it seems like a threshold, a place to go, and you get to experiment with what you want. But you can still do that if you're protected. You can still experiment with cuisine. You can still experiment with what you're. So what this journey you've been on has taken you to all these places and all these amazing cuisines. Has the objective of what you do changed in those 12 years? Like what you said, your first show, you went, I'm going to do this, and then now that you're on your 8,000th show, and you're like, I'm doing this. Is it different?
12 years of learning, during which I've been to around 100 food factories,
Wow.
more than 10,000 restaurants, 46 countries, and it's a continuous journey of learning. I can tell you a funny story which happened a couple of weeks back. So I remember going to this lady, which was part of my education. Her name is Therese, and back then I always enjoyed fresh Lebanese white cheese from her, and all I wanted is eat. So since the year probably I was 10 all the way up to 30, it was okay. I like cheese. So the last 5 years, I go back to Therese and say, Therese, tell me how you do it. Tell me, do you boil it? Tell me does it look like this? So last week, probably 3 weeks back, I looked at her and said, please tell me about this particular thing. Do you boil the milk? How do you do it for it to have this shape? She looks at me and says, Anthony, you never asked me about these questions. All you did is eat cheese. Now you want to know? So along the 12 years, it was a complete uplifting of education, of learning, of maturity. And that maturity came not only through food, but came and helped with understanding what do I want to do. Do I want to teach people something new? Are my videos only about eating or learning something new? Is it about food or the people who make the food? Who's my client? Who's my hero? Is it the person, a taxi driver, and what does he eat, or the food he eats? So lots of things went along the way. And every time I connect with the new community, especially the things I learned from the Lebanese community in Australia, especially from the things I'm learning from the Middle Eastern communities in America, make me want to know more, learn more, and update and uplift what I do to the next level, while reminding myself every year, am I still relevant? Am I doing videos that people are still interested in watching? Am I reinventing myself? So all the equipment you see that I have, and I can build up a podcast studio in a minute, or upload a video every night with the edits and the music and everything, are lots of learning along 10 and 12 years. How can I do it? What is the equipment I need? Which is the best equipment for fastest outcome? Because every trip is 4 terabyte of that.
You know, so that's a ton. You know,
Count.
I'll show you my studio, the engineer's booth, with a stack of 8 terabyte, drives. That's a whole different conversation, the production value of a show like this, and I want to get to that. But I want to peel back this education that you have, because wine is the same. You know, wine, every time you open a new bottle, you learn something. And every time you speak with somebody new, this is why I continue the podcast well after my career in the wine, selling wine, is because I love it. I love learning about it. Yep. And you and I probably will never stop learning, because it changes radically.
It's never enough. You always learn every single day.
And so, but you're talking about both sides, which is really interesting to me. The consumer side, like the taxi driver, what is he or she eating, and why, versus what's on the back house side, which is what's the chef making and why. Do those link up? Do you think it's the cart before the horse, or the horse before the cart? Our cuisines, which you've seen 12 years now, you've seen a lot of changes. Do you think it's a consumer-driven thing?
It's a consumer-driven thing in this new world of ours. It's a consumer-driven thing in what does the world want. Michelin Guide played a big role. Awards played a big role. Big billboards around the streets played a big role. So lots of things change along the way from the needs. I would say, allow me to say it as is. Food before COVID and food after COVID. Food before Instagram and food after Instagram.
Yeah.
Food before delivery platforms and food after delivery platforms. Food before the internet and food after the internet. So taking a step back of our childhood. Do you remember the sandwich where we were at home? Do you remember? I remember scout camping camps. What did we eat? Did you remember what we took at home at school? No internet, no phone, no ideas. Mom did the same thing. If she wanted a new recipe, she would go buy a book, open the book, and etc. So all of these played a big role. Back to Lebanon, the old days, white cheese, goat milk, no cows around. There were no other than Lebanese goats and not Saanen and Alpine white goats. So these would be very important for the food. Farmers would prepare food during 6 months of summer to eat them during 6 months of winter, where you could not open even the door of your house. So all of these were the back ages. And then fast forward 2020, internet modernization, Facebook, Instagram, you can grab any recipe you want, any picture you want. When I started working as a dentist, I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, we'll
talk about that
yet.
So I had 3 big screens at the clinic, 4 big screens at the clinic. Discovery Channel, there was nothing called Netflix. National Geography, there was nothing called the Food Network. CNN, because I wanted to watch Anthony Bourdain. And something else, probably the local news. So I used to watch on Discovery Channel and National Geography, the 2 famous TV channels before that, about food and travels, and that Englishman speaking English or American and going and traveling around the world. And I used to look at that and say, okay, why not me? Why not someone speaking Arabic? Why not a Lebanese guy doing that? Why would I follow someone, Anthony Bourdain or others, or Guy Fieri, that speaks American, eats American, and everything he does in his perception, the American way? How can we connect to it? Impossible. So I wanted to do the same.
Wow.
And this is how it started.
Interesting
But
thought.
I'm linking it to fast forward today, every single person having a phone becomes an influencer. And everyone having an iPhone posts videos. So the world has evolved, and this food has evolved with it. So mistakes are becoming bigger, but yet also, since there are guides and people are taking pictures, etc., protection of the heritage and mistakes are not allowed anymore. I can tell you a funny story. 2012, went to a restaurant with a phone in hand, started taking pictures of the menu and plates. I was shouted at, I was kicked out, and I was treated as a thief.
2012?
Yeah. Why would you take pictures of our
ago.
menu? Why would you take pictures of our plates? You are a thief, you are stealing everything, you want to open a restaurant of your own. Same guy, which I wrote a very bad review about. 5 years later.
Talk about phones in your hand.
Very bad review about. 5 years later, calls me back and says, hi, I heard you're all around touring around restaurants. Would you come take pictures of my food and menu? So
Now
the world,
that's really
5 years.
interesting.
So the world has evolved so fast.
Wow.
Where today, who's your biggest marketing strength?
Yep,
People.
right.
To 2012, it was how much can you pay to have billboards and magazines write
Right,
about you.
that's right. Even
So all of this
2012.
has lots of impact on what we eat and how we eat it.
That's a really interesting point because it wasn't that long ago. And the same has happened in the wine trade. And it doesn't really matter what the product is. The congestion on the internet now to sell wine. Where else would you go to tell people about your food? Where else would you go in today's world? You don't do magazine articles or ads. You don't run an ad in a newspaper. They don't even exist hardly. The only way to touch people, which is in a huge way, is social and anything on the internet.
Yeah.
So this trek, I'm interested to hear your opinion of. I just got off the phone with a homeopathic doctor for an hour because I think statins are poison. I really believe that they're poison. And so we had this long talk, and there's many books on the subject of organic biodynamic foods. But I'm wondering, from your travels in your 47 countries, have you seen cuisine that just more deep-rooted in, let's call naturality, natural, unadulterated wheat that comes from the natural farms, cows, pigs, what they eat is just on a national level more healthy, more pure.
I really do not want to sound biased, but let me tell you.
No, you please do.
let me say it as is. What is organic food? What is natural food? It's what my ancestors used to eat every day.
Right.
So Lebanese food is something very natural that comes from the villages. In our country, tomatoes taste tomatoes and cucumbers taste cucumbers. And whenever we produce for only 3 million people. So we do not have the problems of producing for 320 millions, where everything is natural, everything comes from the land. We eat tomatoes whenever we have tomatoes, cucumbers whenever we have cucumbers, wheat whenever it's time for wheat, and we do not push them to feed 320 million. Everything is natural. 70% of our food is naturally vegetarian. Mm-hmm. Protein, carbs, and vegetables are very balanced in the diet. And there are more than 400 different plates that are enjoyed and consumed in our Lebanese cuisine. So when you ask me which one of my cuisines is one of the favorite, I would say let's start by Mediterranean diet, the famous Mediterranean diet.
Yes, right.
Middle Eastern, and at the end, Lebanon, where from 0 to 3,000, we would eat, depending on the elevation, sun 300 days a year, natural, normal sun, no 114 Fahrenheit, and we don't have zeros. So it's something that is very balanced, that creates and produces something that's very natural. Let's go back to garlic. Why is garlic bad today? Because 99% of the world is consuming Chinese garlic. But back then, or back home, it's natural garlic in front of your door. However, how much you can produce, you would eat you and your family and keep them for winter. So the world is going so fast where milk is not milk anymore and wheat is not wheat anymore. Do you want me to go into lactose intolerant people? Few are, and they're not lactose intolerant to milk, but to the bad ingredients of what milk is not milk anymore today.
You're right.
And the same goes for gluten-free, gluten-intolerant people and others.
There's a movie called Vacation. Have you ever seen it? Chevy Chase. You ever seen it?
Probably.
Okay, so it's a comedy, but he comes home and he's a food additive specialist. It's a comedy and it's very funny. It's very sarcastic, but they drink the milk and he goes, "Oh, I hope you like it. It's 4 years old," and it's sounded funny then, but there is milk now on the marketplace that lasts a long time, and it kind of bothers me that it shouldn't last that long. Yeah. But here's the book you're talking about, The French Paradox, which when this book came out,
wine and the Mediterranean lifestyle, exactly.
Yeah, when this came out in 1990 on 60 Minutes, red wine sales went through the roof. They've never come back because of this book, and it's because it's part of the Mediterranean lifestyle. But now that we're talking, that's a minor part of the Mediterranean lifestyle. And the reason I say that is, even in the wine business, we loud ourselves now that we're growing organic wines and biodynamic wines, and this is such a great thing. Look how great we are. And like you're saying, it wasn't even that long ago, the monks of Burgundy or Bordeaux or the Bordelais, even in America, we didn't have the pesticides and the insecticides and herbicides that we have today. So they were always organic. Right, just like you're saying in Lebanon, and so which is great to hear because those villages have been untouched by those ideas, And isn't it now when you travel the world and you're doing your food shows, aren't you recognizing that everybody's talking about seasonal food?
Yeah.
Right?
Seasonal
Isn't that one of the hip things?
One of the things of the Michelin guide, whenever you have you receive a star, to be able to receive a star, one of the things you need to serve on your menu seasonal things. So you cannot use something out of season.
Yeah.
So this helps in a way or another. We're going places where we need to connect to something. People need to connect to something. Some connect to organic food, some connect to bio food, some connect to gluten-free food. People are feeling lost, so try to connect to something. And one of these are seasonal fruits or whatever, are going to markets or paying the tomato $4 in the States just because it's organic or something. So going back to the norm, the old world, like we say, old wines, the old world wines.
Yes.
Our country is one old world countries. Everything was natural and not too far ago, probably 30 years, 40 years back.
It wasn't that long.
It has adapted a little bit because the world has changed, but still, food is still food. Blue zones, I believe Lebanon is one of the blue zones that were not mentioned in the documentary called Blue Zone. So it's one of these places where you just feel good, you eat good, you live longer, you drink arak, you drink wine, everything's fine. And you don't have a miss on what's in my food that makes it last longer. Just bread would last only 6 days. It doesn't have to have ingredients for it to last 1 year on shelf.
No, it's just, I'm going to look up arak and see if it's in here as part of the lifestyle. No, kidding.
Arak is part of our culture and we're proud of it.
Of course it is. Well, it's a very important feature. And my daughter's a French trained, and my friends are going to get mad at me for saying this because I say it all the time, but it has a lot to do with fermentation sciences and wine and what she learned in Paris, and she worked for Alain Ducasse in one of his bakeries. And so when she graduated from school, Dan Barber, the famed Blue Hill Farm chef up in New York, gave I was going to say eulogy. He gave the commencement speech, and what he talked about was Alain Ducasse came to his restaurant, I'll make it short, and he tasted the butter. And he asked the question, chef, was this hand churned? And the chef says, yes, of course it's been hand churned. And then about 10 minutes later says, the milk that made this butter, was it from fertile ground where the cows grazed? He said, of course, chef. And Alain Ducasse left. The next week, he notices in the kitchen an intern using the cuisine art to make the butter. He says, how long have you been doing this? He says, a couple of weeks. Well, the butter that Alain Ducasse had that day was not churned by hand. It had been churned by a machine. And then he went to the farm the week later, and the cows were gone. He said, where are the cows? He said, I sent them down to the South 40 to graze and fertilize the soil. And he said, how long have you been doing that? He goes, 3 or 4 months. And so Alain Ducasse was able to taste the fact that the butter had not been hand churned and that the milk that made that butter had come from a different part of the farm, which, besides his palate being incredibly sensitive, tells you a lot about what we can connect with when it comes to food, how our bodies can respond to foods that are properly made. And the same thing happens with wine. I think everybody comes to the table eventually, no matter what generation, when the proper, honest glass of wine is served. And all of a sudden, the light goes on. Is that the same with food?
When Nell and I travel, 2 things happen. 50% of the story starts on Instagram. So we look at pictures and we look at each other and we say, we're not going to like it. We know we're not going to like it. And then the other thing happens when we just open the door. Opening the door, it's done. We're going to love it. Wait until you eat it. No, I know we're going to love it. And it happened this morning. Or by opening the door, we look at each other and she looks at me and says, please smile. Said food is bad. She says, please smile. So what I want to say by that is energy. What we call it in our language, nafas. What is nafas? It's love, energy, happiness, everything that passes through your fingers and that a lady or a chef would put into food. And this is what I can feel. I can feel that nafas. So I can eat a sandwich and by closing my eyes, I feel it's better than being good. It's greater than good. Mm-hmm. How can I explain it? I cannot. When I eat something, I would feel that if it's good ingredient or not. We look at each other and say, there's something about it. There is something that's making me shiver. There is an energy that came into me that is much more than a recipe. Mm-hmm. And that extra, which you were talking about, Alain Ducasse, is that extra mile that he felt and you cannot cover it. 99.99%, no pretension, 99.99% of the times, I look at something or eat something and I don't like it. I call the manager and say, there is something wrong, or the chef is not here, or the dough was not rested enough, or the milk is not good, or there is something. Every single time I bring up a subject, that manager comes in and says, yeah, I'm not sure how you knew, but yeah, the chef is not here, or the dough was in the fridge and we changed our ingredients, or etc., etc. That energy that sometimes you think you can lie about, some people do not sense it definitely. Yeah. So other things that are, I would put my restaurants, probably the wines and everything else, into several categories, of which the main two, connoisseurs of what they do, so the real food professionals, and investors and entrepreneurs. And what happened in the States and Canada mainly are people who came in just for the passport or the green card. And the easiest way was open a restaurant. Buy a business. And what do you know about food? Zero.
Yeah.
Wineries, probably. Millionaires, Chinese, are buying biggest wineries ever. What do you know about wine? Nothing. And it's not only about the grapes. It's about that energy that you put in every bottle, that sense, that feel, that caress that you give to every bottle, that would give it a 4.6 over 5 or other, whatever the grading is.
That's right on. That's a great way to put it. Passion would be the other word. And when I sit down to do a podcast and I'm speaking to a winemaker, that takes you 30 seconds to figure out if this person is really involved with what they're doing. But that's also the model you're talking about. I just thought of something. The business-based model of a restaurant versus the chef-based model of a restaurant. The business model being driven by numbers. How can we reduce the cost and increase the margins? And we'll worry about the food. It'll be good, but not great. Versus the chef who's in the back yelling and screaming and throwing the pots and pans and saying, I'm not sending this out. And the other night I made veloute for a chicken dish I was making. And the first batch of veloute, I dumped it out because I had slightly overcooked the roux, and I got that floury flavor. And it was just for my kids. I mean, I could have just served it, but I wasn't going to do it, right? Yeah. So, did you ever think that when you were a surgeon, a dentist surgeon as well, right? Yeah. That this would happen, or was there's a recess that I studied all this time in school? I went through my apprenticeships, and now I've finally arrived at my career. That would ever change?
Never imagined it's going to be this way.
Yeah.
I always knew I wanted to do something special and become special and do something that is different that would change the world. When we met, my wife and I, we were just kids, 21 years old. Probably the first week I looked at her and said, it's going to be a long road and we're going to go places. Are you up for it? And she said, yeah, of course. Probably didn't understood what I said, but I had a gut feeling. I had something inside that says, you're going to do something. You're going to change the world in your own different ways.
That's great, yeah.
And every morning I wake up to film a video. It's about what difference can I make? What is the legacy I'm leaving? What are people watching for? And I can tell you that there is this lady stopped me in Australia, looked at me and said, you know what, Anthony? You're the only show on TV today that will unite the family if you're 5, 10, 40, 60, or even 90.
Really?
We all sit on the same couch to watch your videos that are clean, neat. They put happiness in our hearts and they take us places. So every morning I wake up and say, I need to continue doing what I do. I need to continue doing that because it's making a difference in people's lives.
What was the Arabic word? Nafas?
Nafas. N-A-F-A-S.
You have to have that to do this. I mean, in order to what you're doing, and we'll talk about production in a second, you have to have that to do this work because it's complicated, time-consuming, requires thought. It's just like food. You cannot put an average product out there because it will get average response and maybe even less than that because you get only seconds to catch somebody's attention to do this.
Let me tell you something that is interesting for you. I met one guy one day that said, everything you put in your food goes into your stomach. So please don't use cheap wines in your food.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
people look at it and say, the cheapest wine you have open in the fridge, probably opened 3 days ago. It's just wine. I just need the flavor.
No.
It's going to your stomach at the end. So whenever whatever you're using in your food, use the best ingredients to please yourself, because everything is going in.
The people, my company, I can't tell you how many times I tell them, look, when you throw wine into a sauce, and once the alcohol burns off, you're only left with the flavor of what that wine was, and it less the alcohol. Which, if you've ever had de-alcoholized wine, is not very good. So you better. But you have so many. You know, I feel the same way. I have so many stories to tell, and ones I don't even know exist yet. Right? That we want to do, and we want to continue the passion. And though I retired selling wine, and I don't have to come here every day and talk to my employees and encourage them to continue. I have to do it for myself to continue. And this is the hard part. This is self-motivating because people tell you. And yesterday I went to a tasting, small tasting, and this young man came up to me. He was a restaurateur, actually, in the South Bay here. And he says, you must be Paul the Wine Talks guy. I said, yeah. He says, I watched your show on Clovis Tétanger, the famed chef. He goes, it was really cool because you didn't swirl and sniff and talk about the wine. You were talking about the origin of his name, which was the king of the Franks, you know, in the 13th century. And I go, wow, you were listening.
Some people still do.
But that's motivation.
Yeah, definitely.
To continue the stories.
Definitely.
So I have to tell you a funny story that I want to tell you. I want you to tell me your trek in this. The first time I took my studio on the road, I went to San Francisco to Napa, and I had to roll this giant case, you know, roadie case. And I had my microphone stands. I had, not this big, but stands and these Shure mics and all my recording stuff. And it was over 50 pounds. And I got on the plane and I dragged it to the customer and whatever. I'm now down to a shoebox size. And you bring in a little tripod with a couple of iPhones. How long did it take you to figure out that you could get the quality out of this production without having to tote around all kinds of crazy stuff?
Took some time. We started the first trip to Australia was a big camera. I returned back home with backaches, with everything was blue, and then it took me some time to understand that it's not about, you need the minimum of equipment, good lighting, and understanding how to use them. So at the end, a phone, you cannot use the microphone of the phone. Unless you're using the new 16, which yesterday they fixed lots of problems we have in the sound and everything. You need good quality sound, good quality lighting, good quality equipment, clean up your lens, and at the end, how to put them into a nice editing that is easy and then straightforward. So the content I have, I empty my phones every single night. Never go to sleep if I don't empty my phone. So I know what content I have, how much data I have, and if I need to adapt or change to anything. Every single night, there is an edit that needs to happen. You know, lots of people told me, your videos are long, the YouTube algorithm needs a 6-minute video. People do not watch it unless they do 1 minute. But as exactly what you said, when someone watches until the end and you send a message at the end on the 50th minute, and someone sends you a message and said, you said this on the 50th minute, you said, okay, wait, there are people who want to watch. And when I remember the families sitting at home, some call it Anthony Thursday. So they gather around in Australia, 50, 60, 70 people, and gather all around and watch, where did he go this week? Which village are we discovering this week? And they watch all the show. What happened at the beginning? What happened at the end? What did we eat during the 50 minutes? Who are the people we are meeting? What happens all across? You would say, okay, I will continue doing it. It's easier for me to do a 5-minute video and that's it. And it's way harder to edit now a 35 or 40-minute podcast. But I'm sure someone somewhere is watching and learning something about it and making a difference in someone's life. And I try to make it lighter, because sometimes I did an interview yesterday with an amazing guy, and probably if he saw all of this, he would have said no. And he said no. And then I opened the camera, the phone, put it next to me and said, just for the legacy and just for, think about all the young people of Lebanon that have lost hope.
Yes.
Give me minutes of your time and remember that someone is going to look up to you and say, my life is going to change and I want to reach this guy. 1 hour and 10 minutes later, he said, did I say enough?
That's amazing.
Yes.
Have you run into that before? I mean, certainly the old school who's maybe afraid of a microphone, who sees this big puffy thing, but in this case you have...
People
you know,
people reach a certain level in life, probably around the 60s, 70s, where they've done a lot of money, they've done lots of success, they've done several interviews, and I come in with my equipment, sometimes speaking Lebanese or speaking English, and say, another interview, and they'll say, okay, enough, I've had enough of interviews.
Yeah, right.
And the narrative is not, it's not about advertising. I'm not asking you to advertise what you do.
Right.
Just think of how we are 16 million Lebanese around the world. 3 million in Lebanon, 16 expats, a total of 19 to 20 million, who's left in Lebanon, lost hope, country at war, lots of problems. And many have succeeded along the way to become big guys, presidents, Republicans or Democrats, representatives, company owners. If you go to Costco today, probably 10% of products on Costco are made by a Lebanese or by a Lebanese-owned company.
Wow.
But we do not know.
No.
Lots of products at Trader Joe that are branded Trader Joe are made by Lebanese factories. And so on. I can continue, so on and so forth. Okay, how can I connect with these successful people and what can we learn from them? And this is my daily struggle of maturity of what No Garlic, No Onions was about. How many restaurants can I visit a day? When I started, it was the challenge of how many restaurants can I visit a day? And my record is 36 restaurants in one day.
Wow.
And this was what I wanted to do. Food, restaurants, okay. I'm not 20 anymore.
So this
And 12 years later, it has a different approach.
how many, and I have to tell you a quick story after this, but how many of these people that you approach would say, A, who wants to hear my story? Like nobody cares. And B, no one's ever asked me to tell my story. Does that happen a lot?
Many.
Yeah.
And or I tell them, or between myself, I would say, I'll ask you the same question tomorrow. Because tomorrow, and it always happens, tomorrow is another day, when I receive a message saying, I just had 10 phone calls from Lebanon. Everybody's talking about my interview. My cousins connected with me. It's been 20 years I didn't talk with them.
Wow.
I got new jobs.
That's
I got new
amazing.
connections. I feel good. How about another interview? I forgot to tell you about this and that and that. I'm receiving messages from a friend of mine every single day about, I forgot about this, I forgot about this. And this same guy,
That's funny.
I've been begging 3 years for an interview.
Yeah.
Now he wants to do another one.
Yeah.
So I know the outcome. It's not, I know that
right.
it's very important for many. It's not for him, not for me. At the end of 1 hour, probably staying at the pool would have been better. But 1 hour, or that legacy I want to continue. I want to reconnect all these successful people around the world together so we know about each other, we help each other, we work with each other, and definitely we learn from them. I would look at someone selling 10 tons of garlic a week. I would say, I want to be him one day. Why not? To someone giving food for Costco nationwide 24/7, I can reach him. He did it. Why can't I? Etc., etc.
Do you think the success of your show is the humility of the show? In other words, you mentioned earlier it's not about me. And so I'm very cognizant, for instance, when I give a speech somewhere that I don't use the word I when I talk about it, because it's not about me. I'm doing a speech on Armenian wine coming up, and I've already written it's not about me. It's about these people. But do you think that the humility that you're showing today is really why people continue to tune in, because they can relate to the subject matter, not trying to understand who you are?
What you see is what you get, and probably this is it. You called me 1 hour earlier. We're here on this couch.
Right, yeah, which is
unprepared,
amazing.
Both of us.
Because the guy didn't show up this morning.
We've been talking for 43 minutes because you know your subject, because I know my subject,
Right.
because I am who I am. So I do not try to create another Anthony on camera.
Right.
And when I meet people, it's about my red face. I'm very shy. I'm about I look at, when someone says, I want to take a picture with you, I just say, thank you. And they look at me and say, thank you. Come on. So probably it's this energy I give to people that it's not about me. I'm not searching for fame. I know what I want. I know what I want to become. I know what I want from my show. And probably you're going to meet me in 10 years while taking that journey and continuing that path with more maturity, more ideas, more things to do. And probably people like it. On my show, it's a show that speaks casual, normal Lebanese, no swearing, no politics, no bad surprises, and very colorful, nice music, always happy, no negativity. So why not connect with it?
Right, sure. And good policy. I want to go back just a half a second to the guest list, because we had a car show, an Armenian car show, and the Agajanian family showed up. And the Agajanian family is very well known in not only the trash, which is, of course, a very popular business for the Armenian people, but in racing. Much of the beginning of the Indianapolis races were won by, many of them, by the Agajanian family. And so they brought a very special car to this car show, and I had never spoken with them, but they're local legends. And I asked them, this is the youngest son of the famed father, has anybody sat you down and asked you these questions? He goes, no. I go, seriously, no one's ever said, because this is not only Armenian history, amazing Armenian history, it's racing history, American racing history. The Indianapolis 500, they've won it 4 times with their cars. I mean, this is like serious stuff. In LA history, because I used to own the only racetrack in Los Angeles, that many, many racers were born there that became famous people in America. And no one had ever asked them. And I thought, God, and they're going to come on the show in November. And I thought to myself, there must be hundreds, thousands of stories like this that you can find and peel back. Are they coming to you now, or are you making phone calls, or how's it?
I try to connect. It's hard. 9 of 10 I connect with. 1 of 10 would connect with me, and I believe in destiny. I believe in things. Everything happens for a reason. I can tell you a funny story today. And things like this happen every single day. So I received a message from a friend saying, there's this new place opened in Glendale. How about you go check it out? And I had an appointment which was pushed 30 minutes. So I said, fine, you know what? I'll go there, order a sandwich, and see. Thought someone, an employee is going to welcome me, and probably the sandwich is American, not even Lebanese. And then I park, go down, open the door, and the owner starts shouting, oh my God, Anthony is here. Oh my God. I was praying all night for you to come in. Oh my God. I thought you're not coming back to LA. Wow. He called his wife. He calls his son. And everybody was all around very happy of me coming in.
Wow.
So I looked at him and said, I believe I'm here for a reason. I'm a very strong believer. We definitely asked for it. Good people connect with each other. And we spent the next hour, and I got late on my other appointment, having fun and enjoying ourselves and having great food. Definitely he will be happy being on my channel. I was happy connecting with him, and things happen for a reason. So yeah,
that's unbelievable.
And this is how it goes. So whoever is gonna be on my show one day would be there for a reason. Everything happens for a reason. I'm not next to LA. I'm 1.5 hours away. You called today. It happened that I'm in Glendale. My appointments were pushed. You had the time to welcome me,
right?
And I'm here for a reason,
right?
So it's not like
that was pretty serendipitous that we were able to do this.
It should happen, so it happened.
But this morning I had coffee with Harry, our mutual friend, and he goes, "Hey, Anthony's in town." I said, "Oh, well, you know, if I had to get together, it'd be great." And that's why I texted you this morning, our Tuesday morning connection. This is what we do. Well, it's already been 48 minutes, and it's been such a fabulous time. And I know we can talk about many more subjects and continue this conversation as your journey continues, and as mine as well. I went to a tasting today, and I met the winemaker, or the director of the winery, and all of a sudden there's a relationship built that he's coming on the show. And I think that handshake and that presentation of earnest humility to say, look, I just want to talk to you. I just want to share your story, because there's a story in that picture. There's all kinds of stories to tell. And I'm so honored to have you here and hear your story, because it's fascinating.
Before we go, allow me to tell you.
Please do.
First of all, allow me to thank you for a great interview. Amazing questions. 90% of the questions I didn't answer before. The discussion was very enriching, and it was not only focused on one little thing, but more varied and diverse, and definitely people are going to love it. Your voice is nicely musical, and you understand your subject, and you're very educated about it. I'm very happy and glad I was here on your show. I would love to come back. for a season 2 or episode 2 whenever we talk about Lebanese wines, and I have a lot to
Yes.
tell you about Lebanese wines and all the probably my 12 years of experiences and encounters and discoveries about Lebanese wines, and that I would love to share one day. And again, thank you so much for that amazing setup, great humble attitude
Thank you.
and super professional work.
you.
I'm blessed and would love to help and support your journey as well, in the best way possible.
Thank you. Cheers.